What value does this town have for you? When you visit a new place for the first time, the things that catch your eye are often its most superficial aspects. You simply don't realize how much more there is to it. Some places are easy to miss purely because they're closed, underground or dark. One such place is the cellar of the Archbishop of Tarragona, a magnificent Gothic hall of considerable dimensions, which takes up half the basement of Sagrada House. This was the storehouse where in medieval times, the jurisdictional Lord of Valls kept the tithes and first fruits collected in the town. Then there's the interesting bomb shelter, some 9 meters below ground, in Plaza del Blat, built to protect the population from attack by Franco's aviation during the Spanish Civil War. Some other interesting things may escape your attention because they're too high up, above eye level. This would include the 16th century paintings on the keystones in the dome of the Church of San Juan. Or they may be beyond your line of vision, like the 3 medieval gargoyles which protrude from the facade of Santa's Creus house. Others will go unnoticed because they're too small or too hard to locate. For instance, the image of a pine tree, which the architect responsible for restoring Vives P house included among the line drawings that decorate the house's facade. P, which means pine tree, refers to the surname of its proprietors. But easy to see or otherwise, this town's architecture and decoration have many unusual features that give it great value for its visitors. Of particular note, for example, are the 2 glazed 17th century ceramic panels in the Roser Chapel, commemorating the naval battle of Lepanto in 1571. These works are exceptional, not just because of their subject, but also because of their size and the nearly 2,600 pieces that make them up. Sometimes houses are valued because they contain an element that is uniquely in the town, like Mercader House, a medieval building refurbished in the early 20th century with fine 19th century ceramic tiles on its facades. And at Vives House is the last example of an official mark preserved in Valls. This consists of a sign painted alongside the entrance door, a typical feature of the facades of upper-class homes in the 18th and 19th centuries. It indicated the rank of the soldier, who either passing through or stationed at the garrison in Valls could be accommodated by the family. In this case, it was a senior officer. Also of note are the structural and ornamental features, which the architect Josep Maria Vivas gave his home when he married the heiress of Calç Ferrer. The wealth of this modernist building resulting from the joining of 2 19th century farmhouses included wall drawings, wrought ironwork, garlands, an arched doorway, a 3-leafed window, and low arches with helicoidal wooden columns, amongst other elements, making it one of the best examples of modernist architecture in Valls. An element may become important because it stands out, here quite literally, the bell tower of Valls. A fine work in neo-Gothic style, which at 74 meters high was the highest bell tower in Catalonia. On other occasions, a building is valued for more than its obvious architectural or decorative worth. This is the case with the majestic Archpriest's Church of San Juan, which in spite of its imposing architecture and interesting paintings, sculptures, images and altar, is also important because it marks the origins of the town. This same site had formerly been occupied by the old Romanesque parish church of San Juan, documented from 1194, which attracted people from the area around it, so creating the first vestiges of the town, then known as Villa Closa. It was also the main place of worship of Valls residents and houses the Gothic image of the Virgin of Candela, which along with the slender bell tower is one of the main symbols and signs of identity of this capital of the Alt Camp district. And sometimes, a building's architectural value can be attributed to its architect. This may be the case with Vives House, which was refurbished in 1917 by Valls-born architect César Martinel. A disciple of Antoni Gaudí, Martinel's contribution to architecture was the introduction of balanced parabolic arches in brick, as well as the combination of exposed brick and stone, the use of glazed tiles, and the recovery of the volta catalana, timbral vault. Among his most important works are 40 modernist wineries built in rural areas, often referred to as wine cathedrals. Another reason for a place being seen as important is when it becomes emblematic for local people. One example is the Plaça del Blat, one of the main market squares of Valls, which maintained its original use until a few years ago. The square's name, literally Wheat Square, goes back to medieval times when it was near the payol or granary, where the local authorities stored and administered wheat and other cereals to guarantee that they would always be available for the townspeople. The fact that it is presided over by the town hall building and the proximity of the Church of San Juan mean that this square, birthplace of the castellers, human castles, has over the years been one of the main scenarios for numerous historical events and popular and cultural celebrations. Another emblematic site in the town is El Patí Square, which received its name from the fact that it used to be the parade ground of the Archbishop's Castle, built in the early days of the founding of Valls. At first, it was an esplanade, empty of buildings and surrounded by paths and land planted with crops. Then during the Middle Ages, it began to fill up with houses. Sometime later, during the second half of the 19th and early decades of the 20th centuries, well-to-do families chose El Patí to build their residences. The square has been transformed several times down the centuries, but has always been a favorite meeting place and setting for entertainment from Valls residents. Its location and generous size have made it the ideal complement for El Blat Square for staging events of all kinds. Another unusual feature which is worth a mention, and which would certainly otherwise pass unnoticed, is the linking of some sites to eminent people. This is the case with the Archbishop's Castle, built in the second half of the 12th century. It experienced one of the most splendid periods in history when it was home to Queen Eleanor of Cyprus, a public figure with a great connection to this city. The castle also accommodated several monarchs when passing through the town, including Kings Jaume I and Pere III, Archduke Charles of Austria, and King Ferran VII, among others. Sometimes the same place has been linked to people of very different natures. One example is the Church of Karma, related in history and legend to several local bandits. In the 16th century, it was sometimes used as a refuge by bandits who came there in search of protection, like Valls-born Gabriel Olivet. Legend has it that every time the most famous Valls bandit Joan Serra committed a murder, he would come here in secret to place 2 candles before the Virgin of Karma. Curiously, at the root of the presbytery lies the tomb of Pere Anton Veciana i Rabassa, first Commander-in-Chief of the Mossos d'Esquadra, the regional police force. It may also happen that the interest of a place comes from its links not with an individual, but with the whole community, which has different customs from its neighbors, like the Jewish quarter. The Jewish community of Valls was established in a specific part of the town center, which became the town's Jewish quarter, or Call. The Jews in Valls depended on the king's jurisdiction and had their own judicial organization, the Aljama. The Jewish quarter contained the synagogue, the center of worship and study of the Jewish community, where the Aljama also met. They had their own cemetery on the road to Tarragona and a table in the public butchers, where they slaughtered animals according to Jewish rites. It is sometimes hard to know whether you're looking at an original building or a reconstruction or restoration. The Archpriest Church of San Juan that you can see today was originally raised in the 16th century and later extended, adding a chapel to the apse in the 17th century and the Chapel of Sorrows in the 18th century. The interior housed many works of religious art by outstanding Valls artists, including painter Jaume Pons and sculptor Lluís Bonifaç, until they were destroyed in 1936. Elsewhere, the 16th century pictorial decoration is the result of restoration work, while the altarpiece of the high altar was rebuilt to incorporate the few original elements which were preserved. When walking around a town, it is not always easy to understand why things are as they are. For example, Plaça de l'Oli, one of the main market squares in the city. In medieval times, a square of this name was originally located alongside the Church of San Juan and what was then the town cemetery. But the plague of 1348 and the mortality it caused among residents obliged the municipal authorities to move the market square to its present site. Whereas the name indicates, it originally traded in oil, oli, in addition to other consumer articles. One of the most interesting values of any city is the use its residents make of a place, a square, or a building. Where we are now, for example, used to be a hospital for the poor, sick and needy, and any pilgrims passing that way. But before 1835, San Roque was not just the town's hospital. In 1800, parish priest Jaume Cessat also founded the Order of the Sisters of Charity here and set up the first girls' school in Valls. In the medieval era, the space now occupied by Portal Nou Square lay outside the town walls and was surrounded by crops and a few houses. Not far away, there were 3 flour mills, the Jewish cemetery, and the town's gallows. This square was the main southern entrance to the town, and in medieval times was the point for concentrating mules, carriages, and other forms of transport, both for passengers and goods, coming from or going to Reus, Tarragona, or the coastal ports. In the final decades of the 19th century, land at the access to Portal Nou Square, beside the Tarragona Road, became one of the town's main industrial areas, remaining so well into the 20th century. Another example of the importance of a building's use is Santes Creus House, which belonged to the monastery of Santes Creus until 1835. Valls was considered to be an important reference point for the commercial transactions of the monastery in the Alt Camp area. The house was mainly used for commercial purposes, to store and administer goods, but also as a lodging for monks traveling through the town. discovering what you hadn't noticed at first, and the odd things that happen, finding out why things are as they are, learning about the people linked to particular places, and the uses of spaces and buildings. All this can help you to appreciate a place, a culture, or a society, to give them their true value and the admiration and respect that they deserve. So, does this town have the same value for you now as it did before?